All right, let's talk Seattle Seahawks because week one has finally arrived. Football has returned. The months of speculation, empty practice clips, padded scrimmages, and cautious coach speak are over. And yet, even as the league celebrates the start of a new season, there's something lurking in the shadows in Seattle. Something that doesn't feel like the ordinary rhythm of a team going through preseason motions. Something that carries the quiet hum of secrecy, of strategy, of a carefully hidden plan. And the more you look at the pieces, the more you see how deliberate it has all been, how intentionally the Seahawks have kept one name, one player away from the spotlight as if saving him for the right moment. And that name is Tory Horton, a rookie wide receiver who slipped under the radar during the draft process, who showed flashes during camp, who looked solid in preseason, and then vanished from headlines. Vanishing not because he regressed, not because he failed, but because Seattle shut the lights off, dimmed the noise, covered their tracks. And if you know this game, if you know how coaches think, you know silence is never an accident. Silence is a message. Silence is the ultimate form of suspense. And that's exactly why all eyes should be on Horton as the Seahawks step into week one. Because when a team hides a card this carefully, it's never just a bluff. It's because that card can change the game. And the way Seattle has maneuvered around him, placing him quietly behind Jackson Smith and Jigba on the depth chart, even though his snap allocation tells the opposite story, limiting his targets to just 9 in preseason while other rookies were fed double or triple that, feeding a few vague compliments before going radio silent. It all feels staged, orchestrated, designed to make you forget, to make opponents relax, to lull defensive coordinators into thinking Horton is a developmental body, a background character, when in reality, he might be the very weapon that unlocks this offense from the opening snap. And the tension here is delicious because it's not just about Horton himself. It's about the way Seattle has chosen to construct this riddle, dangling misleading clues while hiding the truth in plain sight. And if you peel back the layers, if you connect the dots, you see a story that stretches back through NFL history, through the great surprises that were hidden until the lights came on, Anquan Boldin in 2003, when the Cardinals masked him all summer and then unleashed him for 200 receiving yards in week one, Puka Nacua just last season with the Rams. When Sean McVay downplayed his role until he exploded onto the scene, Cooper Kupp's own emergence years before, when he went from Eastern Washington obscurity to an irreplaceable cog in an NFL offense. And every one of those stories shares the same DNA. Silence, secrecy, a lack of preseason hype, and then sudden revelation when the real games begin. And that's exactly what makes Seattle's handling of Horton so suspicious. Because if he were simply a camp body, if he were just another rookie finding his way, the Seahawks wouldn't bother hiding him. They wouldn't craft this facade. They wouldn't position him behind a slot receiver when his game is entirely outside. They wouldn't let his preseason snaps scream one truth while their depth chart whispers another. Unless they were setting the stage for a reveal, unless they were planning to catch opponents off guard. And that's why this week one matchup carries such a charge of suspense, because Seattle isn't opening against some bottom feeder. They're opening against a division rival, a game that counts double in the standings, a game that sets the tone for the season. And what better stage to reveal a hidden weapon than in a divisional dogfight where every edge matters? Where surprising your opponent on the very first drive can tilt momentum, silence a road crowd, and send shockwaves across the league. And think about it, the Seahawks lost DK Metcalf, the big body deep threat that forced defenses into 2 high safety looks. And last year, without that constant threat, the offense bogged down. Geno Smith struggled to find explosive plays. Defenses sat comfortably, dictating the terms. But now, with Cooper Kupp commanding respect on one side, JSN working his magician's craft in the slot, and Horton lining up wide as the forgotten man, the number 3 or 4 cornerback across from him, Seattle suddenly flips the script. Suddenly, every defensive call is a gamble. Do you double Kupp? Do you shade toward JSN? Do you risk leaving Horton alone outside, exposed against a corner who may have only taken limited first-team reps in practice? A defender who's been studying tape of Cooper Kupp and JSN all week without once imagining that the true dagger might come from the kid in the shadows, the rookie with barely any preseason targets and almost no buzz. And that's where the suspense lies. Because Horton isn't just a body filling out the receiver depth chart. He's a weapon carved in secrecy, a crisp route runner with deceptive speed, underrated burst, and the kind of body control that allows him to adjust midair like a seasoned veteran. And when you combine that with his length and knack for sneaking behind coverage, you realize he's walking into the perfect storm of opportunity, shielded by the gravitational pull of stars who command the spotlight, overlooked by defenses lulled into a false sense of security, and molded by a coaching staff that believes in him so much they refuse to put his true arsenal on display until the exact right moment. Because hiding is never an act of doubt, hiding is the greatest form of belief. Hiding is preparation with intent. Hiding is a team quietly saying, "We don't want you to know what we know, not yet." And when you think about Pete Carroll's long-standing legacy of springing surprises on opponents, the ambush plays, the unexpected rookies elevated in critical spots, or Mike McDonald's defensive mind games now inverted into an offensive chess match, it makes perfect sense that the Seahawks would build this scenario, dangling just enough tape to keep Horton's name alive without ever showing the full plan, sprinkling just enough preseason snaps to make him look like a background figure while disguising the real blueprint. And it all funnels into this moment, week one, the opening drive, the clash that sets the tone for an entire season when Geno Smith breaks the huddle with Kupp split wide, JSN in the slot, and Horton casually jogging out to the boundary, an afterthought in the eyes of the defense. But as the ball is snapped and Cooper Kupp drags a safety with him on a crossing route, as JSN pulls the nickel inside with his quick release, Horton slips past the jam of an unsuspecting third-string corner, his strides lengthening with every step, and suddenly the field is tilting. Suddenly, the secondary realizes too late that the ball is arcing through the air with purpose. The suspense that has been simmering for months explodes into revelation in a single moment of clarity. And the NFL collectively turns to its screens and asks, "Who is this kid?" But back in Seattle on the sideline, the coaches will smirk, the veterans will nod, because they've known all along. They've been preparing all along. They've been coiling this spring tighter and tighter until week one provided the perfect release point. And as fans, we are caught in the liminal space between evidence and truth, a space where every breadcrumb points toward an unveiling. But no guarantees are offered, a space where hope and doubt collide. And that is the purest form of suspense. Because maybe Horton doesn't play a snap week one, maybe they keep him cloaked for another week, maybe the silence stretches longer, or maybe this entire setup has been an elaborate misdirection, a magician's feint to distract opponents from another hidden card. But deep down, when you examine the history of this league, the precedents of Bolden, Coop, Puka Nakua, when you study the patterns of how true breakout rookies are handled, and when you acknowledge the very deliberate way Seattle has shifted their messaging around Horton, it feels inevitable, almost fated, that the curtain is about to be pulled back, and that Horton is destined to be the name that dominates Monday morning headlines, the rookie no one game plan for, but everyone will suddenly fear, and that's why this moment matters. Not just for one rookie earning his stripes, not just for one team searching for its next identity, but for the league itself. Because the NFL thrives on these reinventions, these shocks, these underdog reveals that remind us why the game is unpredictable, why every Sunday carries the possibility of surprise, and why those who were listening closely to the silence will nod knowingly when the noise finally arrives.